Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. 3 more people who tested positive for COVID-19 in Saskatchewan have died. All were in the 70 to 79 age group. 2 were in the Saskatoon zone and 1 in the far northeast. The province is reporting 129 new cases, and there are 18 new cases in our zone, including 5 in the immediate Lloydminster area, where we have 92 active cases. 1,825 cases are considered active in Saskatchewan. 142 people are in hospital, including 6 in the northwest. More than 608,000 vaccine doses have been administered province-wide, with over 40,000 in the northwest. Lloydminster City Council adopted the city's 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. Jace Mackey has more on the plan's long-term vision for the community.
Lloydminster's existing strategic plan was adopted by City Council in 2017 and received updates each year. Now, a new strategic plan was necessary to give a path forward for city administration, council, and the community.
Just coming off an election, council has a pretty good feel of where the community wants to go. For some of us, we've been here for 4 years, and there was some work we wanted to continue, and I believe the community wanted to see that.
With the new strategic plan in place, city administration can now create plans that follow the direction council has for Lloydminster. The 2022-2025 strategic plan's key priorities include delivering good governance, managing our environment and infrastructure, providing a safe community, and building economic resilience.
If our city's not growing, we're going backwards. So we want to ensure that there's opportunity for business, residents, and followed with all the amenities that go with it. And it's a fairly encompassing plan, but at the same token, it is that overview. And the administration has got a good sense of where council wants to be. I like to call it the 40,000 foot level. And then they get down into the weeds and they deal with it each and every day.
The detailed 2022 to 2025 strategic plan, along with previous strategic plans, are available online at lloydminster.ca/strategic plan. And the public is encouraged to review it as the plan sets out council's priorities for the next 4 years and Lloydminster's vision for the future.
It doesn't prevent taxpayers from asking questions and inquiring. That continues to happen each and every day, but it gives some guidance to setting out a budget and where we need to take the community over the next year, where administration needs to go.
For Primetime Local News, I'm Jace Mackey.
2 Holy Rosary High School students are atop the provincial rankings once again in videography for Skills Alberta, and their most recent win is sending them to the big stage.
Whoa.
It's starting to become a regular occurrence for Mackenzie DiCrescenzo and Sierra Bennett, who continue to be atop of the rankings for videography with Skills Alberta. Both found new creative elements to enhance their project for this provincial video, and the video topic for their winning project focused on a student where things are going wrong.
We knew it was going to be more story-based, so we really wanted a video that would immerse the viewer in what we were saying and really get our point across. So in order to do that, we practiced effects long before and really planned it and mapped it out, and so we could use those effects to tell our story.
Another big challenge is to make our location look different from our regional video compared to our provincial video. So in our regional video, we ended up filming more in our PAA area, but in the provincial one, we filmed in the tech warehouse and all over the school.
After going through the gauntlet of regionals and provincials, nationals will add some additional pressure with a smaller window to complete their video compared to the last 2 competitions.
So it's going to be a big challenge to really push ourselves and make a video that meets the standards of our other 2, even better, but in less time.
A lot of people really don't know how time-consuming this stuff is. Editing takes a really long time. So to get this done in 5 hours, it's crazy, but I think we'll be able to do it.
Last year, Sierra and Mackenzie finished in the top 5 against one another in provincials. Now this year, they're collaborating together and using their skills and talents to help win gold for Holy Rosary.
For me, it feels amazing, especially to do it with my best friend, Sierra. To win a provincial title together and be the best in Alberta is something that I'll treasure forever, and I'm sure she will too.
Because we've been skills partners for 3 years now, and just every year seeing us kind of evolve and get better, it's just so rewarding. And Mackenzie's just my best friend, so I just love doing this stuff with her, and I think that's why we're such a good team.
Nationals will be held virtually near the end of May, and the results will come on June 15th.
Now, reality can be whatever I want.
Now here's Evan Kenny with a first look at your weather forecast.
Thanks, Connor. Hopefully everybody's had a good day up to this point. Currently 14 degrees here in Lloydminster. The day started off with a little bit of a gloomy look to it, but as we've moved along, it is starting to get nicer. Unfortunately, overnight, there is a chance we could be seeing some severe thunderstorms, with that even changing a little more as that night continues. We'll get to that shortly here, but first off, taking a look at some temperatures from around the region. It's 19 down in Provost, 16 in Wainwright, 13 in Vermilion, 14 in Marwayne, and then 5 in Cold Lake and Lac La Biche, 10 in Bonnyville, 7 in St. Paul, and 11 over in Vegreville. As we take a look now at your Saskatchewan side here, 23 down in Macklin, 21 in North Battleford, 14 in Maidstone, 19 in St. Walburg, 17 in Pierceland, 12 in Meadow Lake, 24 in Green Lake, and 15 up in Isle of Cross. As we take a look now at your satellite radar here, as you can see, we could be seeing some precipitation there on the Saskatchewan side. Over just south of us here in Lloydminster, there is a chance we could be seeing some severe thunderstorms overnight. This will continue more north into the Lloydminster Cold Lake region there overnight as well. There is a chance that could turn into snow continuing from about 3 a.m. tonight until about 10 a.m. in the morning tomorrow. Overnight in North Battleford, it will be about 4 degrees before a high of 7 tomorrow in Cold Lake. Like I said, it will start off as showers there at -2 before early in the morning changing to snow with a high of 5 degrees there. Taking a look at your 3-day forecast, chillier one tomorrow, especially to start the day. But Thursday and heading into the weekend, things should start to warm up as you see highs of 8 and 14 degrees there. That's all we have for the weather for now. We'll be back after the break with more news. The ACAC hosted their annual general meeting last week. We have more with Lakeland College Athletic Director Al Rogan on the most recent update. Al, thank you very much for taking this time and joining me. Now, the ACAC AGM was last week there. I guess just, Al, starting things off here, what were a couple of the main points discussed by the different athletic directors or presidents at this meeting?
We talked a lot about next year and what we think it's going to look like. Kind of reviewed a lot of the information that was sent out a couple weeks ago in regards to the meeting that our executive had with the presidents, and just sort of going over the timelines that we need to hit in regards to, when we're going to be able to know whether or not we're going to be able to travel to national championships, whether we're going to be able to have a fall start for league sports or a basic January start. And just going over some of the information that was shared with our executive team at the in that meeting with the presidents, and just making sure that we're working hand in hand with our institutions and our presidents and our leadership teams at our post-secondaries to create a positive experience for student athletes next year, but do it in a very safe manner.
Now, Al, last week or maybe the week before, the last time that we chatted, scheduling, they had some rough dates on when, different sports could possibly start. But what's the newest now with how scheduling is going for these different sports?
Yeah, so last week we approved the schedule for soccer, as well as our tournament sports. What we've agreed to is that we wouldn't have any sports start until the middle of September, just making sure that, once again, safety in mind, that we are adhering to those expectations from our presidents. So, our soccer season will start the middle of September and go through to the middle of October, and followed by the playoffs, basically. And then with our tournament sports, for our winter tournament sports, like curling normally starts we have one event in the fall semester, but that's going to be delayed to the winter semester. So all of our curling is going, competitively wise, as far as league goes, is going to happen in the winter semester. We're still going to be looking at having a cross-country running season, but it's all going to be reduced. We're not going to have as many events for our teams to travel to, but there'll be less. And then with our basketball and volleyball teams, right now, our schedule's been delayed. We're going to be able to see a draft hopefully this week, and then we'll be meeting at the end of June to approve that schedule. And hopefully by then we'll have a little more information from our presidents on what they're looking for as far as the start time goes.
And Al, we were talking just out off camera here. While schedules might be reduced a little bit here, you were saying, you guys are hoping to get a little more exhibition games in and still make those games up and still see athletics, how we hopefully normally would at Lakeland College, correct?
Yeah, you bet. Like we're definitely going to be seeing a reduction in league games this upcoming year. We're talking about seeing more teams being able to participate in the playoffs, so more teams will make the playoffs. But to complement that, because we want to give as best or as a positive student athlete experience as possible, the league is allowing institutions to work with their leadership teams to say, if you're able to play some exhibition competitions or some other non-league games, feel free to do that. Just make sure that you're doing it in the safest way as possible. So that's going to be left up to the institutions to make those decisions on their own, kind of thing.
Now, Al, off the top, you mentioned championships here, and the ACAC previously was sort of unsure whether or not hosting or participating in CCAA championships would be a possibility this upcoming year. Now, what's the newest along those lines there?
Well, we're going to receive some direction from our presidents in the ACAC for fall championships by the end of June. So that's the timeline that's been set there. So we're hoping to hear back at that point in time if fall national championships are going to be allowed for our conference to travel to or host. And then when it comes to the winter national championships, usually occur in March. We'll know that timeline later in the fall if we're going to be able to travel to those championships. So sometime in November, I believe, is the timeline set for that. So we're not really sure what's going to come out of that, but we're hopeful that some of our teams will at least be able to travel to national championships. But once again, it's going to depend on a lot of variables, including what our governments are setting as far as parameters go in regards to travel and competition. So it's just more challenging when you're traveling outside of your province and you have to jump on a plane and head somewhere else. So a lot of variables for that leadership group to wade through, and hopefully we'll find out those answers fairly soon.
Well, Al, I think it's safe to say for Rustlers fans out here, we are also hopeful to be seeing him not only playing, but having that success that we saw, before all of COVID-19. Al, thank you very much for taking this time and joining me.
No, thanks a lot, Evan. Appreciate the time, and always good chatting with you.
Well, taking another look now at your evening temperatures, currently 14 degrees here in Lloydminster overnight. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning starting later tonight, and that will continue on throughout the night early into next morning. We could be seeing a chance of some snow there from about 3 a.m. until roughly 10 a.m. Taking a look now at some temperatures from around the rest of the region. 5 degrees up in Cold Lake, 4 in Athabasca, 8 in Edmonton, 5 in Edson, 6 in Whitecourt, 13 in Red Deer, 10 in Rocky Mountain House, and 11 over in Jasper as we head out to Saskatchewan here now. 26 degrees in Saskatoon, 21 in North Battleford, 30 in Melfort, 27 in Prince Albert, and 12 in Meadow Lake as Saskatchewan is going through a warm spell here. As we take a look now, 22 degrees in Flin Flon, 11 in La Ronge, 2 degrees in Buffalo Narrows, La Loche, and in South End, -1 in Wollaston Lake, -2 in Stony Rapids, and -1 in Uranium City. That snow could be affecting quite a bit of northern Saskatchewan there too. Taking a look at northern Alberta here, 6 degrees in Grand Prairie as well as in Fort McMurray, 5 degrees in Slave Lake, 9 in Peace River, and 7 over in High Level. As we head down south here now, 17 degrees in Lethbridge, 23 in Medicine Hat, the warmest part of Alberta today, 16 degrees in Coronation, 12 in Calgary, and 7 over in Banff. As we take a look now at southern Saskatchewan here, 29 degrees in Estevan, 31 in Moose Jaw and in Regina, 26 in Swift Current, 20 in Kindersley, and 30 over in Yorkton. So a warm one for southern Saskatchewan there. Taking a look here now at our national temperatures, 13 degrees in Halifax, 7 in St. John's, 23 in Quebec City, 26 in Toronto, 28 in Winnipeg. Heading out west here now, 12 degrees over in Vancouver, as well as up in Whitehorse, and 3 degrees over in Yellowknife. Taking a look at tomorrow's temperatures, things are going to start off cool. 5 degrees here in Lloydminster, as well as in Vermilion, Marwayne, St. Paul, Bonnyville, and in Lac La Biche. And like I said earlier, there is that chance to start the morning off. We will be seeing some snow that should die off around midday there. 5 degrees also in Maidstone and in St. Walburg. The rest of the region hovering right around that area. As we take a look now at your 7-day forecast, things should get a little nicer for this long weekend, or at least nicer than we were once expecting. As you see there, 14 degrees on Friday, 18 with a little bit of sun there on Saturday, and 20 degrees on Sunday. Once again on Monday, we could be seeing a good chance we'll be seeing some precipitation there. That's all we have for the weather for now. We'll be back after the break with more news.
Welcome back to Pet Project, everyone. I'm joined once again this week with Becca Lawrence from the Lloydminster and Community SPCA. How are we doing, Becca?
We're doing really good. How are you?
We're doing great over here. And who are we showcasing this week? Who's this cute little furry thing?
Yeah, so this cutie here is Jelly Bean. So she came into the shelter probably about a month or so ago, and she came in with 4 little babies. So they were all in foster care for a while, and they've all currently found their homes except for Jelly Bean now. So she is waiting for her forever home now.
Well, that's wonderful to hear that they all managed to find their own place out there. And I guess now it's Mom's turn. So what kind of personality does Jelly Bean have? Like, obviously watching her, she seems like she's just having a good time, laying around getting pets. Is that safe to say that's her default position?
Yes, yeah, she loves to be pet all the time. All the attention, she likes to be on her. And she kind of is just fairly laid back in that sense as well, too. She likes her cat trees, but then she does get quite playful here and there. So we do recommend, we think she'd be okay with other kids and things like that. But, I think she might sometimes get a little bit crazy for the little ones, but other than that, she's a great cat.
That's fair. Different animals have different temperaments, and people people have to kind of learn how to approach specific animals. But like you said, I'm sure she's fine most of the time. But when she wants her space, I'm sure it's probably better just to let her hang out and do her thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful, Becca. So I know recently you guys have had a big influx of animals, and over the last couple of weeks you've managed to find a lot of forever homes for different dogs and cats and rabbits and guinea pigs. And so how are you guys doing overall right now for numbers? How are things looking inside the SPCA?
Yeah, really good, actually. Around this time of year, we're a little bit fuller than what we'd like to be, but actually really good. For cats, adult cats, we are really low. So here in the shelter, when you do come, there's not a lot of kitties to look at, which is nice, but it also gives us that opportunity to call everybody off of our waiting list that have been, again, waiting so patiently for us, and get those kitties in here as well too. And then we just have a couple dog surrenders. Like I normally say, typically our dog numbers stay pretty low, which is nice. But yeah, other than that, we are low.
Beautiful. And so just to touch on that a little bit, Becca, you mentioned, you guys do have a call list. So why don't you just explain that real quick for us here, maybe for a guy like me who doesn't fully understand.
Yeah. So, our waiting list, basically, if there's, our citizens out there, they're very willing to hang on to these strays for us or try and find the homes that they came from. We'll add them onto our list. If a cat they have has babies, and we really would appreciate them hanging on to them till about 8 weeks old, they'll hold on to them. So, obviously kittens and injured animals always take precedent. But for the most people, when people can hang onto them for us, as our shelter is not very big, that's when we add people onto our waiting list.
Beautiful. There you go. Lots of information for anybody out there who perhaps, is needing to be on the call list here if you have some animals at home. Beautiful. So, Becca, we were speaking last week that your guys' AGM is coming up, your annual general meeting. So that's next week, correct?
Yeah, on the 27th. So it'll be at 7 o'clock at night, obviously. And anyone is invited. So our executive director, Danica, she will be sending out the Zoom invite. So you can sit at home in your jammies if you like, and attend our annual general meeting and get some information that you think maybe you just never heard before.
Beautiful. And what can kind of people expect to be discussed in what's on the agenda for the meeting this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll talk about what our numbers were last year and kind of go over what that looked like, and kind of some future plans, things like that, and even in a sense of if you become a member, you can have a vote in some of the things that are being discussed. So you can always do that online or come into the shelter and purchase a membership. But yeah, it's basically just kind of a jumble of everything that we did last year and how we're looking this year.
Beautiful. And so one last thing, we're basically out of time, Becca, but I got to ask, is there any physical items that you guys need? I know, you've cleared out a lot of animals, so, hopefully you're not in dire straits for anything, but is there anything you want to put out there into the ether?
Yeah, for the most part, we're doing really good. We still have a couple bunnies and a couple guinea pigs, so we go through the Timothy hay quite quickly. So we actually did have someone bring in a ton of bedding for us last week, so that was really awesome. But yeah, Timothy hay we're getting a little bit lower on, but other than that, we're doing really good.
Beautiful. All right. So maybe if you live on a farm just outside of town and you have some extra hay sitting around, that would be certainly very helpful for the SPCA. Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately all the time we have this week, Becca, but I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and certainly thank you to Jelly Bean for stopping by. Yeah. She's distracted. She's in her own world, but I'm sure she had a great time with us today. Yeah. Thank you so much, and we'll speak with you again next week.
Thanks for having us.
Manage your waste and recyclables with Quick Pick Waste Disposal. 100% locally owned and proud to serve and support the communities we call home. Quick Pick, the convenient solution to avoid pollution.
I'm joined here today once again with Lewis Smith with the Canada Safety Council. Thanks so much for joining us today. Now, May 18th to the 24th is National Road Safety Week. Which association is the Canada Safety Council partnering up with to spread awareness on this?
So this year we're partnering up with the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. They've been running a very similar campaign in tandem with us throughout the years, but their focus tends to be more on enforcement, while ours tends to be more on awareness. So we figured this year especially, we could get a better reach by just combining our efforts and making sure that we're going after the same targeted behaviors on the roads, in the hopes that between an increase in awareness and an increase in enforcement, we get to see a bit more meaningful change this year.
And what specifically is the Canada Safety Council wanting to focus on for this National Week?
This year, our focus is on risk. Specifically, we can talk about risk as this big global overarching theme, and everyone always takes all kinds of risks in their day-to-day life. Some are more manageable than others, some are more reasonable than others. In the context of driving, we have 4 main risk factors that we're trying to focus in on as just not being worth the risk. And those 4 factors are speed, distracted driving, impaired driving, and not wearing your seatbelt.
Why has the council decided to have this National Week to focus on road safety?
Not only important to have a week to focus on, in fact, we run 8 campaigns throughout the year, 2 of which are focused on road safety. But specifically in the context of National Road Safety Week, historical data has shown that especially this time of year, and especially coinciding with the Victoria Day long weekend, there tends to be a lot of traffic on the roads. Obviously this year with COVID, we might see a bit of a change in that, though still an increase relative to where we've been in the past year or so. So this campaign in particular is designed to bring awareness to those major issues right before the spike in traffic, in the hopes that it helps keep the fatalities and the injuries during the long weekend down to a minimum and down to a more manageable level.
Would you be able to expand a bit more on what risks there are for vehicle safety?
Yeah, absolutely. So our first risk factor that we're talking about this year is speed. And speed, of course, it'll come as no surprise, does not usually act as the sole factor in a collision or in a fatality, but rather it combines with other factors, whether it's lack of visibility, whether it's distraction, whether it's impairment. But speed is still a factor in about 23% of all fatal crashes, according to Transport Canada data that we have. So when we're talking about something as ubiquitous as speed, something that so many of us do without even necessarily realizing, it's important to bring that to light, because we know that inherently we shouldn't be speeding on the roads. Speed limits exist for a reason. We tend to go with the flow of traffic, and if the flow of traffic is a bit faster than the speed limit, we tend to favor the flow of traffic more than the speed limit, which of course makes sense as just a kind of a no-brainer. But at the same time, the higher speeds get, and it is an incremental thing. You won't usually see someone going from 40 kilometers an hour up to 120 kilometers an hour like that. But rather, increments of speed can lead to collisions becoming more severe. They can lead from injuries to severe injuries to fatalities if we're not careful. So we wanted to bring awareness to speed, especially as a main factor that should be avoided this long weekend. If you're traveling somewhere and you find that you haven't left yourself enough time, it's always better to arrive late than to arrive not at all.
What safety tips would the council like to give to people to avoid these situations as much as possible, along with speeding and all the other risks involved?
Well, when it comes to the four main risk factors that we're talking about, speed, it's kind of a no-brainer. Slow down. Even if you're in a situation where the flow of traffic is going slightly faster than the speed limit, you're better off slowing down just a little bit, not enough to get out of the flow of traffic, but enough to make a conscious effort to calm the speeds on the roads. That's always a better option than going too fast and regretting it later. As far as distracted driving goes, distraction is anything that takes your eyes off the road for even a second. So while the topic of discussion does usually focus on cell phones behind the wheel, we can also expand that to talk about eating behind the wheel or putting on makeup or fiddling with radio or GPS. So the solution there is also fairly simple. Just make a conscious effort to leave the phone either in your pocket, or if that's too distracting, in the back seat where you won't be able to reach it. There are also all kinds of tools available that put your phone on do not disturb mode behind the wheel. Personally, I have an Apple phone and I use their do not disturb feature, which is extremely effective and makes it so the phone doesn't even buzz in your pocket until you've turned off your car. As far as seatbelt use goes, again, a bit of a no-brainer. You know, we're talking about something that most Canadians accept is a smart, logical, rational thing to do, wearing your seatbelt. But at the same time, according to Transport Canada stats, 30% of all fatalities or serious injuries came from people who were not wearing their seatbelts. So the correlation is fairly obvious here. Wear your seatbelt and it will help save your life, or it could help save your life. And last but not least, when we're talking about impairment, there are a couple of different topics that tend to come up within this same umbrella. The obvious one, of course, is impairment from alcohol. This is nothing new. We've been talking about this for 30, 40, 50 years and counting pretty well since motor vehicles first came into play. And the solution, of course, is very simple there as well. Don't drink if you're intending on driving, or get a taxi, sober up. There's nothing so important that you need to get behind the wheel if you're unable to drive. The second type of impairment that we talk about is drug impaired driving. And especially with cannabis's legalization in Canada, that's a bit on the rise. The solution there, again, don't get behind the wheel if you feel uncomfortable, or if you feel anything less than 100% confident in your abilities to drive at that exact moment. And lastly, the third type of impairment that we talk about that isn't talked about nearly as often as the others is fatigue. Anytime you're behind the wheel and you're not 100% alert, that's when you risk dropping your concentration. That's when you risk not paying attention to the world around you, and that's when collisions and incidents occur. So if you're planning on being behind the wheel for any amount of time at all, make sure you're well rested. Make sure that you're getting behind the wheel with a clear mind and with the wholehearted ability to focus on the road.
And how can people help spread awareness on Road Safety Week this year and help give a reminder to others that are out there on the roads?
Well, the best way to spread awareness of road safety is to drive safely and make sure that others are being kept safe and not put in harm's way. But as far as spreading our information, we have a whole list of tips and advice at canadasafetycouncil.org that I would highly recommend checking out.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Louis.
Pleasure as always, Shelby. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on Primetime Local News. Have a great night.